Joining me right now, Ethan Nadelmann. Don't know if you know Ethan, but he's a guy that is never at a loss for words, co-founder of the Drug Policy Alliance. He's speaking today at Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy on the war on drugs. Ethan, welcome to Houston's Morning News. Great to have you. Listen, Pat Robertson played right into my interview here. He says that we should be legalizing marijuana. Let me ask you this. War on drugs has failed. You and I agree on that. Do we decriminalize or do we legalize or both?
Well, I'll tell you something. It all depends. I think when it comes to marijuana, what you have to do is what we do with alcohol. 50% of Americans now say that's the thing to do. The time has come to stop arresting 800,000 Americans a year. So let's treat it like alcohol, tax it, control it, regulate it. That's what Pat Robertson endorsed, these ballot initiatives in Colorado and Washington. And I think with the other drugs, what it involves is decriminalization. It involves treating addiction as a health issue. It involves trying to find ways to regulate this stuff more responsibly. But I don't see us jumping to any kind of situation where we're going to treat heroin or cocaine the way we do alcohol and cigarettes today.
All right. Now, Ethan, let me just, if you could you explain to those that may not understand the difference between decriminalization and legalization?
Yes, basically, legalization means treating something more or less the way we treat alcohol and tobacco, right? It means that the state taxes it, controls it, regulates it. It means that people have to be licensed to sell it. You can have tough taxation and regulation, but basically you're talking about a legal market. Decriminalization simply means that the police are going to stop arresting people and putting them in jail for having something in their pocket. I mean, you still get busted if you're, driving under the influence or something like that, but basically what it means is, stop arresting. I have to tell you, last year, police arrested 1.6 million people on drug charges, and over half of those were simply for possessing a joint, and another 300,000 or 400,000 were just for having something in their pocket or something else. That's costing tens of billions of dollars a year. It's not the way we should be dealing with this. It's a waste of time and resources.
If we decriminalize, are we suggesting decriminalizing heroin and cocaine? Then if we catch people with it, what do we do with them then? I mean, we just let them go?
Well, it's interesting. Portugal did this about 10 years ago. They changed the law. They just said, we're not going to arrest anybody for simple drug possession anymore, right? And people said, oh, my God, you do that, everybody's going to use, people are going to be all over the place. It turns out that in Portugal they did this, and the levels of drug use remained about the same, but arrests went down, people dying went down, overdoses went down, AIDS went down. They said, let's treat simple drug possession and certainly drug addiction as a health issue, not a criminal issue. We don't need to fill our jails with these people. So Portugal and now other countries in Europe are providing a good model for doing that. The other thing you see happening in Europe is what they started doing in Switzerland 20 years ago, and now it's happening in a good half dozen European countries. They said to the heroin addicts, if you can't quit, you've been through jail, you've been through drug courts, you've been through treatment, you've been through 12-step, nothing worked, then you come to the clinic and you can get your heroin, a pharmaceutical heroin, not street heroin. You can get it free or for $5 or $10 a day at the clinic. Can't take it home.
All right.
And I'll tell you, the results have been amazing. Crime dropped, addiction dropped, all that sort of stuff.
Ethan Nadelmann joining me this morning, co-founder of the Drug Policy Alliance. He'll be speaking today at Rice University's Baker Institute, along with a lot of other folks that believe the way he does, that we should decriminalize, legalize certain drugs. There's also some folks that believe that the current policy is working. Ethan, before the break, how the Netherlands stepping away from their liberal drug policies, as is parts of Europe, because they see drug use going up. They don't see it really doing any good. Why should we begin to do what they're pulling away from?
Well, first of all, what the Dutch have been doing is dramatically more successful than what we've been doing for the last 30 years. I mean, the Dutch decriminalized marijuana about 30 years ago. They allowed it. The wholesale side still illegal, but the retail side, you can go into what's called a coffee shop. If you're over the age of 18, you can buy some marijuana there, and a cop can be standing next to you. It's no big deal. The stuff is taxed, controlled, and regulated. The Dutch have done this policy successfully for 30 years. What happened recently is that the neighboring countries started to get upset, and the Dutch had a right-wing government. And so what they started to do is to stop. They're not changing the policy fundamentally. What they're saying is that foreigners can no longer go to the coffee shops. They're still keeping the policy for the Dutch, and they're doing so because it works. I mean, let's face it. The Dutch decriminalized marijuana. Any adult can buy it, and the levels of marijuana use in the Netherlands are roughly half what they are in the United States. Fewer Dutch kids smoke marijuana than the United States. Fewer Dutch adults smoke in the United States, and the Dutch don't arrest anybody, and the Americans are arresting 850,000 a year, and we have twice the level levels of use in the Netherlands. So the Dutch are a pretty good model for us, notwithstanding the fact that this government is stepping back right now. It's been a good, steady policy. I'll tell you the other issue you raised about, if you decriminalize drug possession, first of all, there's no relationship between the level of drug use in a country and whether or not drugs are criminalized or decriminalized. There are countries with tough laws and low levels of use, tough laws and high levels of use, liberal laws and high levels and low levels. It doesn't correlate in that way. As to the issue of legalization, if we legalize marijuana, would the numbers of users go up? Would use go up? Yes, there's a possibility it would go up because the price would go down, it would be more available. But I'll tell you this, I think the group that we have the least to worry about are young people. Why? You ask young people today, and they almost all say marijuana is easy to obtain. There are 3 surveys in which young people say it's easier to buy alcohol than it is to buy marijuana. So quite frankly, if we make marijuana legal, you might see more people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s smoking marijuana, and maybe they drink less and take fewer pharmaceuticals, and they, might be a problem here and an improvement there. But I think when it comes to young people, who we oftentimes say this whole war on drugs is about protecting them, I think the young people are saying, wait a second, parents here.
All right.
Don't save us from ourselves. Save
Ethan,
yourselves.
I thank you for your time and welcome to Houston. It'll be a spirited discussion at Rice University.